Hey guys, welcome back. Well, I kind of left us on a depressing note last time, but this is where my life was at. I was just in a really bad state. My climbing gear had all been lost in the mail, and my truck with all my supply, all my earthly belongings had been stolen from Denver and was just gone. And I had giardia. I couldn't, I was just feeling terrible. My hand was broken. I hadn't really succeeded in anything for these climbing expeditions, at least not at all what I wanted to have accomplished by this point. And just feeling terrible. I continued the trip around the world. I just kind of randomly stopped in South Korea. I had an acquaintance living there teaching English with some friends, but honestly, my entire week and a half or 2 weeks or whatever in Korea just felt like a blur. Like, I didn't even know what I did there. I don't really remember anything about it. Maybe I went hiking on like Mount Buchansan once, but I was just feeling terrible, trying to fulfill something in my life. I had signed up for this ultra marathon and back in Duluth, and I was trying to run and just feeling more and more miserable with every training run that I did. But I didn't know what was wrong with me. I'd seen a doctor in Korea and Pakistan, and they didn't know that I had giardia, so I didn't know what was wrong with me. I just kind of went through the motions and continued on from Korea back to California, back to the Chicago airport, eventually back to Minneapolis, and owning nothing in the world but the my shalwar kameez, which is like a Pakistan kind of outfit, and just a little backpack on my back. I arrived back in Minneapolis, and who was there to pick me up but my friend Nicole? After 3 months of feeling like I just had no good friend in the world, especially that month in Pakistan, just not really being able to speak English or hear English, and just having no one in the world, and then coming home to, you know, to just such a good friend that knew me so well, it did something to me. I guess what I can relate it with in retrospect, it was kind of like the bike trip experience, but on a slightly expanded version of it. Whereas I had gone through, weeks of just suffering in the desert on this bike trip through Nevada and through the heat and Utah and exhaustion and feeling sick and sunburned and fighting the headwind and just misery. But then eventually crossing the border into California in the night, waking up to the redwoods and the smell of the vineyards and the cool mist drizzle and just kind of like the refreshment to the soul almost. you know it was similar to that, like arriving and seeing Nicole. Like, she was my California. Even though I was feeling miserable and like a failure and I owned nothing, and I felt sick and whatever, everything in my world was going wrong, somehow just being with her and having someone that knew me so well felt like everything was going to be okay. I was still planning on running this ultra marathon, so I went back up to Duluth and I just tried to run a 2 mile little run, and I couldn't even make it a mile. My body was so messed up from the giardia, which I had just discovered that I had. Uh, there was no way I was going to make it through 62 miles, and I just completely broke down. I had been grasping for control this whole time and trying to make my life mean something and trying to do something meaningful and purposeful in my life, and it was just going nowhere, and I just didn't know how to handle it. So I was in the attic of my childhood house in Duluth, and I just kind of lost it. I had been trying for years to make my life mean something and to provide purpose and identity in my life, and it had turned out to be like a miserable failure. So I hadn't really done any praying for years, but at this point in time, I decided to just give up. And I just told God, like, I don't know what to do with my life, but this sucks. I can't make it mean anything. I can't find purpose in my life. So just whatever you want to do with me, just go ahead. Like, I don't even care. I give up. And I just gave up, and I just like died. It felt like I just gave up control, and I told God, just whatever he wants to do with my life, that's what we're going to do. I'm not trying to make this thing mean anything anymore. So, and as I sort of released my will to God at that point, I just like I just started crying. I felt the presence of God enter the room. It was this strange experience I'd never felt before. It was like this electricity maybe what drugs are trying to be. I don't know, but something completely different. But I just could feel the presence of God and like his love and like assuring me that everything was going to be okay. And I don't know why, I just kind of randomly had a Bible there. I really hadn't read the Bible at all at that point, but I just, whatever, there was one sitting by me and I just kind of randomly opened it up and I found this verse that said, delight yourself in the Lord and he'll give you the desires of your heart. And I realized at that point I felt like he was making me a promise.